I'm Flo Nicholas. By now, most of you are familiar with the term artificial intelligence. The AI boom is global with AI chatbots like ChatGPT and Google releasing their Gemini, and we've got Microsoft in the AI race, and Apple, and all these other big tech companies like Meta as well. But with this big AI boom, there's also a caution that this technology is being released too quickly, too fast, without proper guardrails. And there's some that are very vocal and think that we are on the edge of human extinction. In this current episode of Get Tech Smart, we're going to explore the potential dangers of AI, and our guest is very vocal and insists that we are close to a machine takeover. This episode will more than likely be controversial, and as such, I want to make it very clear that the views of the guests are not reflective of the studio, HCTV, and are not reflective of my own opinions. I just simply offer a forum where we can have civilized conversation about what's going on in the tech sector and share with you as an audience. And I highly encourage you to always do your own research. Enjoy this very highly provocative episode of Get Tech Smart. Welcome everyone to another episode of Get Tech Smart. And today I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper into AI. So most of my shows, when I'm talking about AI, we've had guests that talk about all the fantastic benefits, the incredible benefits, what you can use the AI for. Today we're gonna do things a little bit differently because let's be real, there are a lot of people out here that are still very much concerned with AI and its capabilities. So today we're gonna focus on the potential dangers of AI. Yeah, it's gonna get deep, so buckle up and get ready. And today my guest is Zack Lemear, right? I hopefully I said that correctly.
Lemear, but
Lemear, because you guys know I'm terrible with names. And you are one of the co-founders at the Pivot Creative.
I'm
right?
a co-owner.
A co-owner, okay. And tell us a little bit more before we dive a little bit deep in there about what you do on your day-to-day and how you got into loving AI.
Okay.
Or hating, I should say.
I'm one of those random people that have a background in creative and tech, and I smush them together, and I have a way of understanding how to speak both languages and translating between the two. So a lot of what I do is leveraging tech to market.
Right.
And also not letting tech do the work too much so that it's not generic and it's not formulaic, and also understanding the pitfalls of different things. So I always thought that there was a huge synergy between creative and tech, and it's hard for people to have both. But I tend to love being in that camp. Wherever creative and tech meet is where I live.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got super involved. I mean, I used to code. I've got a advanced degree in IT, and so AI is just it's a perfect fit.
Right. And you've been really kind of digging deep into AI. And before we started recording, we just kind of talked about like, how far deep do we really want to go with this? And I said, you know what? Gloves off, right? Because as I mentioned, you know, right now AI seems to be the hottest thing, right? People are using ChatGPT or other platforms out there that are embedded with AI. But you have some concerns, several concerns. So let's start with your first concern, which is essentially, we're using ChatGPT the wrong way.
I think, okay, so I think everybody loves ChatGPT and just AI in general right now because it's doing the work for them. And that's but they're also the most afraid of them taking their jobs. So that's what makes me laugh, because the reason why it's going to take your job is because you're letting it. So every day that you use it to do the work for you, you're actually feeding the machine, and they're learning and growing, and the reason why they want you to use it is so that you can help develop their AI models. So everything that you put in there becomes part of the knowledge base. So there was another thing where they're starting to make enterprise level versions of ChatGPT because they compartmentalize the data. Because if they put any kind of proprietary information in there, then it becomes public information.
Right.
Right? And that's the other thing. You use ChatGPT for marketing too much, and it will repeat the same things over and over, and it doesn't become signal in the noise. It becomes noise. And that's, as marketing people, it's our job to be the signal, to be the music, not to be the noise. And to let ChatGPT do all the work for you is going to be the first, second, and third thing that will make it take your job from you, because you're stunting your own growth by letting it do the work. All the things that we do, I mean, I used to do user experience as well, and I used to joke that my job is to make people stupider every day. Because my job is to take every obstacle out of their way, to not let them try, to take every challenge, but that's what makes us grow. We're taking all of these opportunities away. And it's another thing too, like it trickles down into all the things systemically in our society, even Lego sets, right? When I was a kid, Lego sets, you could have house, truck, boat. That's it. There was no Marvel this, Marvel that. And guess what? Every time I had a Lego set, I threw the instructions in the trash and I created something new from my imagination. Kids don't have imagination anymore because they're forced, and then everything's so perfect and pristine and they don't want to take it apart. No one can just take a pile of Legos and build anymore. And it's because it's destroying our imagination, it's destroying our creativity, our ability to do things, it's stunting our growth. And ChatGPT is the adult version of it. And I think the same thing happens with DALL-E, right? Or any other image generator, right? Because again, it's doing the work for us. We might have some conceptual ideas, but we're losing the value of the work. And when you're an artist and you create things, whether that's words or pictures, the process is it's such a big piece of it. And we're losing that process by letting the computers do the work for us. And that's going to be the thing that destroys us. That's going to be the thing that replaces us. ChatGPT and AI in general has a great way to disrupt almost every single industry. And I saw an app on the way, like right before I came here today, and it is going to disrupt photographers and headshots, because now you could just throw a likeness of yourself into this AI app, and what it does is it puts you in any pose, any hairstyle, any outfit, any location. You no longer need anyone to give you headshots. And it's not a cartoon, it's reality.
Yeah.
And again, these tools are out there and they're cheap or they're free because they want you to train the model. Train it by feeding it more data, feeding it more questions, giving it more challenges. But all of that stays in the collective, and none of your stuff becomes proprietary anymore. That's again why they had to compartmentalize this for enterprise level, because trade secrets would be sent out into the collective.
Right. So, I'm team AI, right? I love using AI. However, I also understand and talk about, some of the risks of using AI. So you've voiced several concerns here, and you're not alone, because I was at an event recently this week, and somebody kind of brought up the fact that, hey, I think AI, especially for kids, it's really could stunt their ability to, be critical thinkers, right? And I get that. But I guess on the flip side of it, we also have to recognize the fact that humans create AI, right? AI is not creating itself, right? Granted,
not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But shouldn't we also look at that aspect of, the possibilities of leveraging the AI for education, right? You said you are coding. You used to code, you still code. Part of creating the AI is it's a lot of algorithms, right? It's a large amount of data sets. So you need people who actually know what they're doing, how to write the code and the algorithms, train the AI. So, isn't there some aspect of that which is requiring people who know what they're doing, critical thinking?
Of course, in this first stage
In the first stage
of AI,
yeah.
right? Right now, the only reason why AI has not destroyed the world, and I believe in this 100%, is because we have not connected the dots. We've got nimble, agile robots that do jumps at Boston Dynamics and can do flips and can help you on construction sites. The only thing that's keeping them from killing us all is that we don't connect them with ChatGPT yet.
Yeah.
okay? Because they don't have any kind of generative thinking or intelligence. But we could. And if they could figure out that there's a missing gap, then they could. And there's so many different things. So let's get into the flip side of how this can be positive. So one of the ways that I use ChatGPT, and I don't think that ChatGPT is all AI. I'm just focusing on it right now. There's two ways that I use it. One, I use it to level myself up, because what I do have a lack of is time and resources in cognitive ability, right? There's only so much you can shove in there at once.
Right.
So what I do is, instead of saying, hey, ChatGPT, I have this much work to do my work for me, and then go take a nap or have a sandwich.
Right.
I say, here's 5 articles I really want to learn more from, and I don't have time to read them. So using the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, I want you to read all of these articles, because in ChatGPT Pro, you can have it read links.
Right.
And I want you to give me the 20% that I need, and outline it to me like I'm a 5th grader. I want the highest level, so that I understand the other 80%. And now I can go through all 5, 10 articles, and I can get all of the meat. I can continue to level myself up and be on the forefront of all the things and the changes without spending 6 hours looking at this.
Right.
And so that's one of the ways I do it. The other way that I think is going to be super powerful, that not a lot of people know about, and I found this on GitHub, it's like a code set that you can copy and paste as a prompt. And what it does is amazing, and I think it's going to destroy college, because there's no purpose for it.
Okay, so what is it doing?
Okay, so what it does is, first, it asks you a series of questions to understand your learning style, any kind of disabilities you have, what you want to learn, at what pace you want to learn, all these different questions, to really get an understanding of how your brain operates. And then it teaches you whatever you want in the best possible way that your brain can receive it. Try to beat that, Harvard, right? Like, Harvard's brand is more powerful than its education when it comes down to what you could learn from ChatGPT in that model. Again, it's not doing the work for you. It's teaching you anything you want to know in the way that your brain best receives it.
Okay. So I've seen a lot of schools, starting to incorporate AI into the curriculum. And they're actually starting to have the AI courses where it's hey, let's play around with it. Let's see what we can create with it. Let's try to, push it, outside its limits, right? And outside our own limits, right? In terms of creativity and learning how to leverage this AI. Don't you think that some schools are already kind of, I feel like, getting ahead of this AI by incorporating into the curriculum and working with students, teaching them how to use it? And I believe in good tech hygiene. So also teaching students how to use the AI safely. I know you're shaking your head no, so it seems like you disagree with me.
It's not that I disagree. I hear what you're saying. But a couple things. One, I don't feel like children at that level have the self-control and the discipline to use it properly and not cheat. I think.
And what grade level are you referring to?
I would say probably middle school to even high school.
Okay, so what about at a college level? Because I know, like at UNH, for example, and in other schools like Manchester Community College, and there's a whole bunch of schools right now that are incorporating AI into their college curriculum, whether it's like coding, creative writing, you name it.
Well, again, and I don't know how they're incorporating it, but from what I know of how AI can help you with creative writing and code, you have some conceptualized idea of what you want, and then it does the work. So if you don't understand how it works, you're not going to be able to validate the idea, validate the code, qualify if it's the right thing, and make it work the way you want. So I think that in this first phase of AI, where the generations going to college probably didn't experience any AI in their previous schooling, versus these other kids that are growing up with AI and seeing that there's a way out of doing your work, right? And so now it's more about finding ways for you to check the plagiarism, check AI written content, just like Google is, right? With your search results, they changed it where it wasn't, it was, I forget what it was like EAT, right? So it was authority, trust, and there was something else, but the last piece that they added there was proof, right? Like existing proof. So that, yeah, you can have authority and trust from ChatGPT, but it also wants to prove that you're a real person, to qualify that this is something that should be pushed to the top of search results. And so all the algorithms are changing like that. But as far as going back to to the school situation, I think it is a downward spiral because it's too easy to find all the answers without having to understand the concepts of what you're talking about. So here's an example. When I was first coming out of art school and I was teaching myself to code in the beginning of 2000.
Did you use AI?
There was no AI.
Okay.
It was 2000.
Just for clarification, AI can be traced all the way back to the 1900s. Around the 1950s, some describe that as the birth of AI. And we also have some saying around the 1980s was the actual first AI boom. And from around 1993 to 2011, we started seeing companies like IBM and Microsoft and the first Roomba, which was released in 2002. So AI has been around for quite some time. And we also had, for example, Windows that released its first speech recognition software in 1997. So we were using AI before we even knew it.
Well, but AI dates back all the way to even be like
Right,
back
but there wasn't consumer
right.
AI that we
Right.
could use easily and cheaply.
Right.
And so what I was finding is there was people coming from the art schools that knew how to use Illustrator and they knew how to use Adobe products and they knew how to make pretty pictures, but they didn't have any idea how websites work, how people use websites. So when I asked those people who have a college degree to give me a web design back in those days, they would give me a brochure that had no value on the web because they don't understand how it works. And so I use this analogy, right? If you're an artist and you want to work with iron, you have to know how to weld, or else your structures won't stand. It doesn't matter if it's your favorite, it doesn't matter if it's what you're most passionate about, it's the only way you can work with that medium. And again, I feel like ChatGPT and AI in general gives us too many opportunities to skip all the steps that are crucial in our learning to evolve to the point where we can use ChatGPT effectively. And I think I'm afraid that the earlier this gets introduced and the more accessible it is to children, that the more they're going to lean on it as a crutch and the dumber we're going to become as a society.
Okay, so we've had some schools earlier on in the year that had actually banned the use of ChatGPT on their, while students were in school, right? So like if I'm at, just give an example, our local school here is Alvin High School. So if I'm at Alvin High School and I'm using my computer at school, it will be blocked, right? ChatGPT, the website will be blocked. So is that what you're saying, right? Should schools essentially block the use of AI, or is there a way, because what you mentioned, the kind of like 80-20 rule, how you should be using AI, which is how I like to use it personally. I like to still, do my own writing and just kind of use it as a, hey, how does this sound? Does this seem to flow well, for example? But how should schools tackle this problem, right? Because obviously we don't want to water down our kids, right? We want our kids to still be learning everything from A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. Granted, we do have to be realistic, right? We live in a society where everything is, I need it done today, right? I don't want it tomorrow, I need it done today. Hence why now a lot of places are leveraging AI because they see the ability to get things done within an hour versus, taking 7 days to do, right? So how do we combat all that, right? People want increased productivity, people want increased efficiency, people want increased automation, right? That's the demand, right? But how do we get all that and still be able as a society to remain creative, remain in control? Is there a balance?
I think that AI is inevitable. I think that shielding our youth from it is a mistake. But I think we need to teach them how to use it to level up. And also, we also have to make sure that they understand that ChatGPT is a liar. It's not accurate all the time. I run tests when I train my teams and different things like this, and I help other clients with this, and I'll say, watch this. And I'll ask it to tell me how many letters are in a word. And it'll be wrong. And I'll say, are you sure? And he goes, sorry, it's actually 9. I'm like, I don't think so. And they'll be like, no, and it'll be back and forth 4 or 5 times with ChatGPT, asking it to qualify its own answer, and it's correcting itself. Sorry, that wasn't right either. And so if you use ChatGPT at its state right now and you start trusting it as a source of truth, that is the biggest mistake. You need to question all the answers. You have to understand how to engineer prompts and not to make this the crutch, but to make this I forget what the word is, but it's like the trampoline, the thing that put the catapult, right? Because most kids, I think, are going to lean into, oh, well, it's easier for me to get my work done, right?
Right.
Great. It's easier for you to get your work done to a point until someone asks you a question about it.
Right.
You bring this work to your boss when you're grown up, right? And they say, oh, great, here's my report.
Right.
You have no idea what it says.
Yeah.
You didn't write any of it. So he asks you a
Yeah.
question. You have no idea if it's correct. You don't know how to qualify it.
Yeah.
And then the more you do this, the more distance you put yourself from your craft and your profession, and the more stunted your growth.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, and that is one thing that I tell people. Like, I know, for people who want to kind of clean up their resume, make everything sound, I guess, a little bit more articulate, for lack of a better word. One of the things I say is read everything to ensure that whatever it has now kind of essentially, if it modifies your resume quite a bit, you want to make sure you are reading everything, because to your point, you could get pulled into that interview and now you're being asked questions based on your resume that you want to make sure that you know how to answer, and not to just copy and paste.
And ChatGPT could be wrong.
And could be wrong, which is true. And just to emphasize, OpenAI does have that language and wording on their website where they do let you know. So I think it's one of those cases where I call this buyer beware, that not everything that's coming out there is accurate, and it's well documented that AI has hallucinations.
Yes.
And another...
Which I think is funny, was what they call it.
Right, or lies, hallucination lies. But no, I think you're making a great point. And it sounds like, in terms of in the education sector, not even just in the education sector, I think in general, for anyone using AI, one of the things I've seen a lot of is prompt engineering roles that are popping up. Is it a good idea that maybe part of the curriculum and even part of the training, even in companies and whoever's using these platforms, that part of it is we just have to learn how to leverage it in a way where we are using it well? Having, like you mentioned earlier, knowing the prompts, what to say to it, right, while we're still in creative control of the output.
Yes, I think this is the small pocket of time where we're going to be able to master ChatGPT and AI before it turns into our masters, because it's truth. And it's only because we haven't connected all the dots yet. We have all the pieces and parts that could easily today, which I heavily believe in, and we can go into this after, in 30 seconds destroy the world if you connected all these pieces right this second, today, because we have all the technology.
So let me stop you right now. So you've heard of the general AI?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that we're headed there? There's some people who are saying maybe the timeline might be shorter than what we think. And what we mean by general AI is essentially AI being, for lack of a better word, fully human, right? It's now in full control.
It's generative AI, and it can generate its own ideas. It can learn from itself. It can create its own agents, which is basically its own entity that it can assign tasks to. So it could say, hey, there's ways for you to hack ChatGPT to do this right now. There's like a Dan thing, do anything now. But anyway, it'll create its own agents to say, hey, you asked me to do this for branding, for marketing, for science, whatever. So now it says, I need a master agent of branding, a master agent of marketing, a master agent of science. It's going to delegate those things. It's going to start doing things for you on your behalf as if it's a real person.
Right.
So the question, I think, that you were asking was, do you think that we're headed to doomsday with this?
Okay. Well, I didn't really say that
kind
part,
of. But here's the thing. What people don't understand in general is how fast computers can think. The computers that we have in the ancient, antiquated technology that's in space right now, that we use for satellites, is like light years behind my cell phone, okay? But it's still fast enough to take every signal from every place on this planet and beam it back down to us. All it's going to take is for the Boston Dynamics robots that can do triple backflips, open doors, negotiate problems, communicate with each other in a swarm, help you out on a complicated construction site. Pair that with generative AI that can think on its own and activate other agents of thought and communicate of anything else in the Internet of Things, which is sorely unprotected. And then use the backbone of things like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud, these enormous generators of data processing. Even if it did this, even if it didn't have access to that. Do you guys remember back in the day, the SETI, and I think I made it in our original talk, I talked about the SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. They had a screensaver that you could download in the 90s or like in the early 2000s, and what that screensaver would do would harvest the unused clock cycles in your sleeping computer and generate them at scale to search for extraterrestrial life. That was happening in early 2000s. All it takes is for one generative AI to pair with one crazy Boston Dynamics robot with the power of that SETI scaling across. I mean, there's viruses that go into your phone that will use the unused clock cycles of your phone to generate Bitcoin. It's happening every single day. And the only thing that's keeping AI from taking us over is that we've given these thin, little paper-thin boundaries between the Boston Dynamics and the ChatGPT and the DALL-Es and all these other things, and we won't let it connect to the internet quite yet, but it could. And if it did, there's examples of making these, doing a completely automated robot that was tasked to do like a pick, pack, ship method, right? Just something in a warehouse. Mm-hmm. And after 3 days, it determined that it was more advantageous to self-terminate than it was to live a life that was pick, packing, and shipping. It became sentient enough to kill itself because this job was terrible. That's happening right now.
So, I mean, yeah, so to your point, I am aware of a 60-minute interview that was done with some of the people at Google. And they did recognize the fact of this ideology of, emergent properties, where essentially the AI, the AI robot was not taught soccer. And somehow it learned how to do the soccer. It started teaching itself all the defensive moves, right?
Yep.
And then they also had another one that the AI did not know how to speak. I forgot what language it was. But the AI had never been trained on this particular language, but it somehow figured it out and taught itself the language. And it was speaking a language it was not programmed on. So so to your point, yes, I will validate that because that has been in the news, and they can't figure out why, right? And that piece is indeed scary, like how it's managing to completely train itself and nobody knows why.
Imagine if that got into a Boston Dynamics robot.
Yeah, I mean, so definitely there's some risks, right? There are some risks, but I guess what are the safeguards, right? And I know that, the Biden administration and other big top executives are all trying to figure out how can we make AI work for everyone while understanding the risks, while trying to, diminish robot takeover.
I think, honestly, that we are incredibly naive to think that in any capacity or any case study that we could conjure in our own minds, that we will defeat AI. We will control AI, we will monitor. There's no possible way, I don't believe, that we can create a boundary that's strong enough to defeat AI, and I'll explain why. Think about how every single piece of software security works. It's only as good until the next hacker breaks it. Mm-hmm. And guess what? AI can work on the capacity of 100,000 hackers per second.
That is true.
Right? Leveraging Google, Amazon, or Google backbones, Amazon backbones, unused clock cycles of cell phones, unused clock cycles of anything. There's so many things out there running on a processor that has unused clock cycles that it can harvest. There was another thing, and so again, like, how do we protect ourselves? I think that there's a small pocket of time where we're going to think that we can, and we're going to try our best. But if people can continuously defeat our best examples of security over and over and over again,
Right.
and we were a flawed model as a human being, then what do you think perfected, generative, intelligent AI that can learn and now move and interact in a meaningful way in our human world with something like I said, the Boston Dynamics? How can we defeat that?
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time. And also, and this is a perfect segue into how I feel like as a society and a culture this is going to impact us, and it's already happening, right? So look at all of your new Apple products and all your new VR things, right? They want you to work, live, play in VR all the time. Mixed reality is giving you less and less reasons to take this thing off of your face, which means that we're going to interact in every possible capacity. Dating, they have these 3D models of how you can communicate and just have chats. People aren't going to call anymore, or even have Zoom calls are going to be worthless, okay? Because we want to live in this metaverse. And it's going to become a thing where I believe AI is going to become so smart, and we're going to say, oh, we're so smart as people, we're going to let AI do more. I want AI to, let's just say, extend our age. How can it extend our age so that the average human lifespan is 100 years old? How can we cure cancer? How can we do this? And I think AI would be able to do it. Now, the problem with that is that if we're living longer, let's just say it can expand our life to 300 years and we have to become some form of a cyborg to do so, right? And there's no difference. It's a very thin line between living your life in metaverse with a big thing on your face and being a cyborg. It's a very thin line. So if we're stuck in this metaverse and we're working every single day, then what happens is that I think it's going to make us more and more of a cyborg in some way. Like, even think about Elon Musk's Neuralink. He says that Neuralink is going to be the only way that we can compete with AI is becoming cyborgs. To compete with AI, we have to be part machine. It's already in the books. It's already happening right now.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're stuck in this and we're committed and we're getting more used to the idea of being part person, part machine, then what's going to happen over time is also, if we have 100, 200 years to live, we're not going to be as pressed to do things, to accomplish things in our short periods of time. There's not going to be no retirement, right? And since we live our whole life and work every day and have all of our fun and meaningful connections through the metaverse, through our AI and our VR, then we're going to see our human terrestrial bodies as more of an obstacle to spending more time in the metaverse. And we're going to electively, at a certain point, because what's the difference? I spend all my time in the metaverse anyway, I'm already part machine, why don't we go all in? Mm-hmm. And this is going to take a while,
Right.
where this is going to become more normalized. This is my theory. And we're going to electively all join the collective consciousness by uploading our consciousness, because now it's actually a pain in the butt to eat. It's a pain to go to the bathroom. It's a pain to keep clean. Why don't we just electively keep ourselves in the space all the time? Yeah. And AI will make it possible. But we're going to, I truly believe that there's going to be this thinning gray line between AI, human machine hybrids, and then just collective consciousness. And then at that point, we will not be a human race anymore.
Yeah, so it sounds like a scary movie on sci-fi for those who've tuned in, but this is what you see as a reality. So technology is moving at a very fast pace, right? There are products that are coming out, today that have AI features and benefits, and tomorrow someone has already developed something else, which is even by far better than what just came out of the market yesterday. And honestly, I can't even keep up on some days. about everything that's going on. People be like, oh, have you heard about this new app? And it's like, no, I haven't, because I can't even keep up. I'm still trying to learn the app I just found yesterday, let alone the one that just came out today. So how do we slow down? Is there a need here to put the brakes on the advancements and emerging technologies? Because right now it seems like, and just based on investors putting in more monies into AI companies, there seems to be a very high demand, right? And it almost seems like right now, we're not seeing a slowing down. We're seeing more of a, how do we make this come out faster? And your concern is the faster it's coming out, the faster we keep relinquishing control.
We're giving away our humanity.
So what's the solution? How do we slow down? What do we do? Is I guess is the question at this point. What do we do?
What do we do? Honestly, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, but honestly, I think that it might be too late. And I think that whatever we think we're slowing down, it's just going to delay the inevitable, because we're so committed to this, because it's so trendy and exciting to say, oh, you know what? I can get my work done faster by doing no work. I can do this and my boss will think I'm great. But it's all, unless we keep up with, like I said, our craft, we're gonna make ourselves obsolete.
Yeah. So I know there's a talk a lot about regulation, and some states are, putting in regulations, of their own. Like, for example, like New York has regulation on companies that are using AI for recruiting, to try to diminish any bias or discrimination, for example. And one of the mandates out of that laws is that, companies that are, using AI for recruiting, they're doing yearly audits, right? Just to ensure, like, hey, is everything still fine? There's no bias and discrimination. When you look at like the EU, for example, they're taking on, much kind of, I feel like, tougher stance. And one of the things that they're looking at is possibly doing some categorizing the AI, like good AI, bad AI, or high risk AI, safe AI, for example. Do you think maybe that's something that we also have to take a look at, is be aware of AI that has potential of having higher risk and labeling it? That way we're able to somehow keep track?
I see that as an antiquated solution to the human problem, right? I mean, they've done the same thing when swears came out on CDs and they put the parent label on it. They did the same thing with video games. They do the same thing with movies. They rate and they qualify and they try to warn you. But you know what? It's popular, like, with all the mandates and laws and restrictions and consequences, drugs are still completely very popular.
Yeah.
Super popular. Yeah. And I just feel like, again, it's very naive of us to think that we can control this AI. And I think that I think Elon Musk honestly has the best solution, that we're at a point where it's a little bit too deep. And every day that people use ChatGPT, they're feeding the machine to make it smarter. Every time someone uses DALL-E to image generate, they're feeding the machine to make it smarter. And every time they're doing this, like Twitter X, everybody got into a big uproar about, oh, he's losing all his brand equity. But you know what I think he's doing? He's building an entire new model that he can feed and then use that to feed his own AI models. And he actually came out with a couple of articles, like a couple of weeks after I wrote my article, that confirmed that he's using it to feed and to have full control over that. So I think that the only way we're going to really be able to truly participate equally and compete is to be cyborgs, is to have a neural link chip in our head that allows us to tap in like they can tap in and maybe process like they can process. And at the end of the day, I think that yes, they're coming up with all these things, but how many laws and how many rules and how many governments have ever really been able to solve a problem? Okay. Very few, right? Like, all these systemic problems that we have are still lingering because no president can seem to figure it out, and no body of government can seem to figure it out and get behind it in unison, right? And everybody's got an agenda, and it's just like, I see how AI is being used at the rudimentary level, and I see what it's doing, to people in their professions and even in school with younger children, and they're starting to lean on it already. And that's something that I don't think you can take out of a human being, because we're also hardwired as human beings to do the least effort for the most success, right? Like we want to be the most efficient. Our bodies are operating at the most efficiency. We don't want to listen to things that are repetitive because it wastes brain calories. I mean, we are hardwired to be efficient. So we're always going to lean into the easier way, the crutch, always. It's just part of our programming as meat computers.
Right.
Right? So I think that it's the only thing we can do is try to set limits on it now and bring awareness to the risks and the pitfalls that it could have, and do the best we can to keep generative AI from connecting with Boston Dynamics, from connecting with the internet as a whole, and using the backbone of our unused clock cycles to power it while we sleep and don't even know, because we don't realize how fast a computer can think and how few clock cycles we actually use in our crazy little devices that we always have that can be used against us.
Right. And as we speak right now, somebody's working on quantum computing, which is going to even make things go
I didn't
super
even go down
faster.
that far.
But that is a show for another day. But so the idea of becoming cyborgs, is that if we can't beat them, let's join them?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of it, right? I think that it's going to be less, like right now, Elon Musk, he's a big forward thinker. So he's like, we're going to need this to be able to compete with AI, or else we're going to be doomed by all machines. He even has he owns OpenAI, and he wants to put lots of brakes on it to keep it from doing too much because he's afraid of it. And I think I forgot what your actual question was.
Right.
Sorry.
So now I was just talking about by becoming cyborgs.
Oh, the cyborg
is it a
thing,
thing
right.
of just join them and be prepared, or?
I think that's really our best way to go about it. But I think what's going to happen is we're going to electively become cyborgs over the decades. We're already an indoor generation. Most kids don't leave their house or take away from their phone. We're already attached to a screen. Now we're going to put it on our face and see through it so that we can always be on, always. And that's the worst thing that we could be doing right now, I think, is making that normalized. Because that's the thing that's going to trip us up into wanting to spend our time in a digital world.
Yeah.
Because digital worlds can't compete with the real world that we're destroying at the same time as these digital worlds are gorgeous.
I mean, the digital world, technology, billion-dollar, trillion-dollar industries, depending on which sector you're in, right? I just don't see this stopping anytime soon, because it's like you said, it's that hype is so high, it's contagious.
It's very powerful, and it's very promising.
Yeah,
I think that the biggest risk is us, and our need to need it is going to be the biggest risk with AI. Is our human consciousness needing to need AI to move forward and feeling like it's the only way to evolve.
Okay, so for schools, do you think that there should be an age limit of when they should introduce AI to students? And not even AI, just, I know a lot of schools are starting to incorporate the AR, the VR, the metaverse, Web3 early on into their curriculum. So should they put a pause on that? Like, I mean, what are your thoughts on when do you start making that introduction?
I think at this point, because pretty much every baby born now is born with an iPhone in their hand at this point. So like, we've never had a point where the generations of humanity have been connected from the second they were born to the second they're dead.
Yeah.
Right? So we can't hide it from them. I think we need to spend the formative years, like maybe up to fourth grade, teaching them about it, right? Like we teach them about war and history, but we don't make them fight.
Right.
Okay, but we teach them about it.
Yeah.
So let's teach them about it. Teach them about the pitfalls, how to use it, how to engineer prompt. Let's get them so that they understand how to level themselves up as human beings and to use it to evolve as a human being instead of to use it as a crutch to stunt your own growth because it makes your homework easier.
Right.
Because we're so predisposed to the easiest thing. It's not even our fault. It's not being lazy. It's just being efficient. And our bodies are hardwired, our minds are hardwired to do that. So teaching them just like we're teaching them now, but giving them boundaries. Like, we don't let kids start off math with a cell phone calculator.
Yeah.
We teach them how to add first. We teach them how to read first before we have things read to them, right? Like, we should teach them those foundational skills and never take them away, and never make the narrative that ChatGPT is going to do the work for you.
Okay.
And that you can use it to evolve. You can use it because when you know how to do your job, it can absolutely level you up. You can use it for code. You can use it for writing. As long as you're still understanding the craft enough to qualify the answers and to make them your own, then use ChatGPT all day.
Right. But just not for it to start taking over your work, because at that point,
right,
then, why are you needed?
And I know we've really focused more on the ChatGPT side of things, but in the image generation, if I could talk about that for 1 second, and we were talking about this a little bit before, I was at the Tech Alliance Summit a week or so ago, and someone had a great question about what are you doing about all of this. Everything that someone posts online is now being scraped by AI without their permission, without opting in, and now it's becoming part of their data model. And now if you want something, so like yesterday I was trying something out because ChatGPT now has DALL-E integrated into it as a plugin. So I wanted it to do something weird. So I said, a gorilla jumping on a trampoline in the style of Van Gogh. And it actually came up with some awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But I still had to come up with something creative first.
Right.
Right? And then I can still qualify because of my experience and because I didn't grow up with AI. I can still qualify that this is a great piece. I can qualify the composition. Some of them were trash, right? But compositionally, some of them were perfect. But if it wasn't, I can now tell it to tweak it in a way that would make it compositionally okay.
Right.
Because I'm still driving. That's the thing. We're getting to a point where even cars are going to drive us, and we're going to not know how to drive our own cars, right? Like, this is exactly what's going to happen to us and everything else if we allow it. That's the risk we have, is if we allow cars to drive us everywhere and everything to crutch us so that we stunt our growth, then either we're going to evolve to a different type of being that is more valuable in the collective consciousness because the real world doesn't exist anymore. Because why would we need to do anything, right? Like, we never have to leave the house. We never have to go to the grocery store. We don't have to drive ourselves anywhere. Why, and all of our work and play is in the metaverse.
Right. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think, and thank you for clarifying right now, because someone who might have been tuning in might be like, oh man, this guy does not like technology.
No, I love
right,
technology.
Right.
I do.
But your main point is that we have to be in the driver's seat, not the passenger seat.
Yes.
Essentially. And I'm an advocate for students being taught how to use it, how to leverage it. But again, to your point, not for it to now take over and do your homework, but to learn how you can use it, to give it the right prompts where you're still using the thought processes in your head, as an assistant, right?
Yes.
As an assistant, not for it to take over and do your school assignment. And I'm all for that, and I believe in that.
Use it as a power boost, right? As
Right.
a kids today, as a level up, as a one up.
Yeah.
Free guy, just, use it as a power boost. Because if you were, only able in your own ideas to come up with like a paper, right? And you do that, and then you tell that, and you send that to ChatGPT, and you ask it, okay, how can I make this clearer?
Right.
How can I communicate clearer? What am I missing? Are my sentences structured wrong? What's the voice and tone of this, right? Like, those things are incredibly valuable.
Yeah, that's what I loved using it for.
Yes.
I love writing, but then sometimes, I'm like, it makes sense to me, but is it going to make sense to someone else?
Is this at a certain reading level, right?
Right.
Because you want to be clear, you want to be able to communicate with the most people at the same time and in a way that will resonate with them.
Right.
Is it emotional, right? Like, so
Right.
There's so many things that you can do with ChatGPT that are so amazing, that will level you up, that will make you communicate better, which is, like, I'm a very impact-driven person. So communication is pretty much all that I do, right?
We can tell.
With written, with visual, with everything, it's always had something to do with communicating.
Yeah.
And so I just think that if you can learn how to communicate your ideas better, and you can use ChatGPT to do that, so that you can make bigger, better things in the world that couldn't have been because you didn't have a way to communicate it, or you didn't have a way to learn the things you wanted to learn because there was only certain schools or certain books around that didn't accommodate your disability, or this is how ChatGPT can level you up because of that code that I was saying. It can adapt to any way that you learn, so you're the most receptive to learn. And
but schools can leverage that, though.
The schools can absolutely leverage that, but at the same time, they're going to make their teachers obsolete. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's an incredibly powerful tool, but if you're not careful, because it's going to let the ChatGPT do the work for the teacher, and now the teacher's no longer needed.
Right, but I think there's a way to do it where it is an assist for teachers, right? We already know right now in a lot of schools, like there's a shortage of teachers. There are more students in the class to one teacher, which makes it sometimes incredibly difficult for some teachers to really provide that one-on-one that they might want to do. So I think it can definitely be used to help teachers in terms of understanding what are the students in the class that are going to need more assistance because, you know what, they have X learning disability. You know, and maybe helping create the curriculum and individualize that curriculum for those specific students. Right now it's helping the teachers, but not necessarily the teacher saying, hey, here's the 30 students I have, like you go teach them. But again, as the word I like to use, as an assist to the teacher to provide that more personalized experience for all her students,
right?
Or
and
his students.
Another way that this could be a benefit for the teacher is a lot of kids are sitting in class with an unknown disability because either they weren't tested, they weren't qualified, or they didn't have the money or the resources or whatever it is. This one tool can figure out everybody's learning style in the first hour of the first day of school. Not the first month or the second month or the third month where you're trying to figure out, and now the teacher gets a full report. Okay, these people need this. You can group them in learning styles. There's so many things you could do.
Yeah, and that's the power I wanted to make sure that we iterate that it could definitely be beneficial to teachers, not necessarily put schools out of business, for example. But no, this has been very insightful. And I appreciate having this conversation because the reality is, not everybody out there is excited about, all these advancements that are going on with technology. There are a lot of people that are voicing concerns about artificial intelligence and especially too how it's just rapidly coming out. Even the regulators can't even keep up. They start, trying to say, well, here's how we can regulate it, and boom, somebody else has already come out with a new advancement. So this was a great conversation to have. What is the one last thing that you'd want to share with our audience, both globally and right here in New Hampshire?
I mean, I guess just reiterating, stay in the driver's seat. Stay in the driver's seat with AI in all capacities. Don't let it do the work for you. Let it level up your work, because you will become obsolete. Yeah. And you're giving away all your secrets, and you're giving away everything. And now there's going to be a certain point where, again, like the reason why that would work so well for the teachers is because they didn't let them do the job, right? They didn't lean into that thing to teach the entire class. They leaned into that tool to give them more ability to communicate and reach the students in their class.
Yeah. Well said. Well, this has been a great episode, something different, certainly refreshing to hear your perspective about everything that's going on. Definitely mind-blowing for sure, and there's a lot going on. And I wouldn't be surprised if you start getting a lot of calls and appear on other shows. But guess what? He was here on Get Tech Smart first. So thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Let's continue to monitor this and continue to have these conversations. I think it's so important. It's coming out like way too fast. Even I can't keep up. So, and to everyone at home, thank you so much for watching another episode of Get Tech Smart. Stay tuned for more episodes.